Let me tell you the brutal truth. The moment you start chasing a woman, you've already lost her. A masculine man doesn't beg, doesn't run after validation, and doesn't lower himself to be chosen. He simply disappears, and in that disappearance, his power speaks louder than any words. Chasing a woman is not an act of love, it's an unspoken declaration of insecurity. When a man pursues endlessly, calling, texting, begging for attention, showing up at every opportunity, he thinks he is proving his dedication. In reality, he is unconsciously sending a message that he doesn't see himself as valuable enough to stand still and be chosen. The act of chasing communicates one thing louder than words. I need you more than you need me. I can't survive without your approval. My worth is dependent on your validation. That is the silent confession of neediness, and it is the very reason respect dies when men chase. Women are not repelled by love or by care. They are repelled by the smell of desperation. And desperation always leaks through the actions of a man who has placed a woman at the center of his life. When you chase, you position yourself as the applicant for her attention while she becomes the prize. But here's the truth. Masculine men do not submit their value to be approved, stamped, or accepted by anyone. They do not walk into relationships with the energy of someone who needs to be granted permission to exist. Masculine energy is about presence, about groundedness, about knowing who you are with or without her. The moment you shift into chase mode, you communicate that your life is empty without her and that you are willing to bend, sacrifice, and reduce yourself just to keep her. That is why a woman begins to lose attraction the moment a man chases. It's not because she doesn't want to be loved. It's because she does not want to carry the weight of being the center of someone else's existence. Attraction is killed not by attention, but by imbalance, and chasing is pure imbalance. The psychology behind it is simple. People value what feels scarce and dismiss what feels overly available. When a man is always the one reaching out, always initiating, always proving, he conditions her mind to believe that his attention has no value because it costs her nothing. She doesn't have to earn it. She doesn't have to respect it. She doesn't even have to reciprocate it. And when something costs you nothing, you treat it like nothing. That is why the man who chases finds himself ignored, ghosted, and disrespected. He thinks he's doing everything right, giving love, showing care, proving his loyalty, but what he is actually doing is drowning her in the heavy energy of need. And no woman desires to mother a man who cannot stand strong on his own. What men fail to understand is that neediness is not about words, it's about energy. You don't have to say, I need you, for her to feel it. She can sense it in your constant checking in the way you wait by the phone, in the way you drop everything the moment she calls. She can sense that your world pauses for her while hers keeps spinning. That imbalance suffocates attraction. Women test men not with words but with energy. They notice how quickly you fold, how fast you respond, how easily you make yourself available. Every time you chase, you fail that test. Not because she wants you to play games, but because instinctively she wants to feel that she is connecting with a man who is complete, not a man who is empty and looking for her to fill the void. The silent confession of neediness is the reason why so many men end up in situations where they feel they gave everything but received nothing. It's because giving from a place of lack is never attractive. When you operate from a space of lack, everything you offer feels like a bargain for love, not an expression of abundance. Women feel that difference deeply. A man who stands strong, who gives because he has, who loves without losing his frame, he is magnetic. But the man who gives because he hopes to earn validation, he is repulsive. Chasing is never about the woman, it's always about the man's inability to recognize his own worth. Until a man realizes that, he will continue to confess his weakness through his actions without ever saying a single word. Human psychology has always been drawn to mystery. What is scarce, hidden, or uncertain captures more attention than what is constantly available. This is why disappearing, stepping back, and not being the man who is always present creates intrigue in a way that chasing never could. When you disappear, you interrupt the pattern she has come to expect. If she is used to you answering every call, replying to every message, showing up whenever she wants, your absence becomes noticeable, and that absence forces her to think about you in ways your presence never could. It's not about manipulation. It's about understanding that human beings only value what they fear losing. And when you disappear, you trigger that fear. Your silence becomes louder than your words, and your absence becomes more attractive than your constant pursuit. Women are naturally curious beings. The mind is wired to fill in gaps, to solve puzzles, to chase the unknown. When you are always there, always predictable, always at her service, there is no puzzle to solve, no mystery to uncover. She knows she can reach you anytime, and that certainty kills her curiosity. But the moment you pull back, the moment you stop showing up as expected, questions begin to arise in her mind. Where did he go? What is he doing? Who is he with? Why isn't he thinking about me the way he used to? Those questions are the seeds of intrigue, and intrigue is what reignites attraction. Disappearing doesn't push her away. It pulls her mind toward you because the unknown is far more captivating than the known. Think about the movies, the books, the stories that capture our imagination. They always leave gaps, questions, cliffhangers, moments that force us to think and wonder. That is the same effect a man has when he stops being predictable. If you are too accessible, she writes you off like a story she has already read. But if you pull back, she doesn't have closure. She doesn't have certainty. And that lack of certainty is what keeps her thinking about you. Masculine men understand this dynamic. They don't vanish out of insecurity or bitterness. They disappear because their lives are bigger than a single relationship. They disappear because they are busy building, creating, and leading. Their absence is not a strategy. It's a byproduct of having purpose. And that is what makes the intrigue so powerful. There is also a biological and emotional layer to this truth. Desire is fueled by tension. When you are always there, the tension disappears. There is no anticipation, no longing, no build-up. It's like listening to a song on repeat until it loses all its magic. But when you disappear, you reintroduce that tension. You make her wait. You make her wonder. You make her long for your presence again. It is in that gap that attraction breathes. Women will never admit this openly, but they crave the emotional roller coaster that comes from not having complete certainty. Stability makes them feel safe, but mystery makes them feel alive. The man who knows how to balance both becomes unforgettable. And here is where most men fail. They think disappearing means ignoring her, blocking her, or cutting her off completely. But that is not disappearance, that is immaturity. True disappearance is subtle. It's when you stop over-investing, when you stop initiating every interaction, when you stop being at her beck and call. It's when your energy shifts from "I need you" to "I'm fine without you." That kind of absence is powerful because it doesn't scream for attention. It silently pulls it. She starts noticing the difference. She feels the shift. She senses that something has changed, and the mind cannot rest when it feels like it has lost control. By disappearing, you place her in the position of uncertainty, and uncertainty is where attraction thrives. When you disappear, you also communicate abundance. You show that your life is full of things that occupy your time, your goals, your passions, passions, your ambitions. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to announce it. She can feel it. And that feeling creates an aura around you that is irresistible, because the man who can disappear without bitterness, without explanation, without seeking a reaction is the man who silently tells the world, I am whole. That wholeness is what intrigues her the most. She doesn't chase you because you played a trick. She chases because your absence highlights your value, and your silence reminds her that you are not like the rest. Masculinity at its core is not about dominance, aggression, or loud displays of power. True masculinity thrives in control. Control over emotions, control over impulses, control over reactions. Chaos belongs to immaturity, to men who cannot govern themselves and who allow the external world to dictate their internal state. When a man chases a woman, when he loses himself in the whirlwind of neediness and constant pursuit, what he's really doing is surrendering control. He becomes a man led by emotion instead of principle, by impulse instead of discipline. And that is why attraction fades. Because women may enjoy attention, but they do not respect a man who has no control over his own center. Masculinity is magnetic, not because it shouts louder, but because it stands still in the storm, grounded and unshaken. When a man chases, he enters chaos, texting too much, calling without purpose, showing up emotionally unpredictable. One day he is confident, the next day he is desperate. One day he seems secure, the next day he is begging for assurance. This inconsistency reveals his lack of mastery over himself. A masculine man, however, does not allow himself to be tossed around by the tides of desire. He knows that the foundation of attraction is not improving himself, but in remaining unmovable in his own value. Control is not about suppressing your feelings. It's about directing them. It's about knowing that your emotions are your responsibility, not someone else's obligation. Chaos looks like a man who demands that a woman fix his insecurity. Control looks like a man who steadies himself no matter what she does. Masculinity thrives when a man leads with composure. Think about the men throughout history, or even in your own life, who left a lasting impression. They were not the loudest, they were not the neediest, they were not the ones running after approval. They were the ones who could enter a room and shift the atmosphere simply by their presence. That presence came from control. It came from restraint, from the ability to say no, from the discipline to walk away when respect was absent. Chasing, on the other hand, strips you of that presence. It makes you appear chaotic, clingy, and weak because it reveals that you have lost control over the one thing a masculine man must never lose: his frame. Frame is your ability to hold your ground, to stand in your truth, to refuse to be bent or shaken by external validation. Without it, you cannot lead. And a man who cannot lead will never be followed, admired, or desired. Control is also about timing. Masculine men understand the value of patience. They don't rush to respond. They don't jump at every opportunity to prove themselves, and they don't let urgency dictate their decisions. Chaos is impulsive. It wants satisfaction now. It needs answers immediately. It demands closure at any cost. But masculinity operates in the long game. It knows that respect is earned through consistency, not through frantic effort. A man who has control over his timing understands that sometimes the most powerful move is silence. Sometimes the strongest stance is to wait. And sometimes the greatest display of self-respect is to let things unfold without interference. Women feel this control. They sense it in the way a man holds himself, in the way he doesn't break under pressure, in the way he doesn't need to chase because he trusts that what belongs to him will align with him. When a man thrives in control, he radiates security, and security is the most attractive force a masculine man can project. Women may test, they may push, they may even provoke, but what they are really searching for is whether you can remain grounded grounded when things get chaotic? Can you stay calm when emotions rise? Can you stand firm when she pulls away? Can you maintain your frame when the relationship feels uncertain? Most men fail these tests because they confuse masculinity with aggression. They think raising their voice or demanding respect makes them strong, but real strength is found in restraint. Real power is revealed when you can keep your emotions in check, when you can remain composed in the face of uncertainty, when you can continue to walk with purpose even when chaos surrounds you. A masculine man knows that his value is not found in how much he can do for her, but in how deeply he can control himself. His ability to say no, to walk away, to not be led by desperation, that is what sets him apart. Chaos makes a man weak because it reveals that he is ruled by external forces. Control makes a man powerful because it proves that he is ruled by principle. And in the end, masculinity does not thrive in chasing or begging. It thrives in the calm confidence of a man who governs himself first, and by doing so, earns the natural respect and attraction of everyone around him. Value is never determined by how much you give. It is determined by how much you withhold. What people can access freely, endlessly, and without effort quickly becomes ordinary in their eyes, no matter how precious it actually is. A diamond lying on the street, available to anyone who passes by, loses its sense of worth because there is no struggle to obtain it. In relationships, the same law applies. When you are constantly available, when you give unlimited attention, time, and energy without balance, you are like that diamond thrown in the open. Your worth begins to fade, not because you are less valuable as a man, but because you failed to protect your value through boundaries and scarcity. Disappearance is not weakness. It is the shield that preserves your worth. It is the reminder to both you and her that your presence is not guaranteed and that your time is something to be respected, not exploited. Every human being is wired to appreciate scarcity. We desire what feels rare and easily dismiss what feels excessive. When a man disappears, he creates the perception of rarity. He shows that his time is not for everyone, that his attention must be earned, that his energy is a privilege, not a guarantee. This naturally raises his perceived value because people instinctively respect what they cannot always access. But when a man overextends, when he is always present no matter how he is treated, he unknowingly communicates that he does not value himself. And when you do not protect your own value, no one else will. Disappearing is not about punishing or playing games. It is about aligning your actions with the truth that you are valuable and refusing to give that value away carelessly. Think about the relationships where men complain that they gave everything and still got nothing. The reality is they gave so much that their gift no longer meant anything. Unlimited supply destroys demand. If you are always texting, always calling, always showing up at her convenience, you strip your presence of all meaning. She doesn't have to work for it. She doesn't have to respect it. She doesn't even have to acknowledge it. It's simply there, like air, vital but invisible. Disappearance, on the other hand, forces appreciation. It interrupts the flow of your availability and reminds her of what she risks losing. It makes your presence something to notice again. It makes your time something to crave. It makes your energy something to value. That is why disappearing protects your worth. It reestablishes the balance between giving and receiving, reminding her that your presence is not to be taken lightly. When you disappear, you also protect yourself from depletion. Chasing, overgiving, and constant availability drain your energy, leaving you empty and resentful. You start to feel unappreciated, taken advantage of, and invisible. But the truth is, you allowed it by failing to guard your value. Masculine men understand that their attention is currency, and like all valuable currency, it must be preserved and spent wisely. By stepping back, by removing yourself, you create space to recharge, to focus on your mission, to invest in yourself. That self-investment not only strengthens you, but also increases your value in the eyes of others. Because nothing is more magnetic than a man who knows his worth and is willing to protect it at all costs. Women instinctively respect men who are not overly accessible. They may not admit it openly, but deep down they are drawn to the challenge, to the uncertainty, to the realization that your presence is not something they can demand. It forces them to rise, to invest, to reciprocate. Disappearance shifts the dynamic. Instead of you proving yourself to her, she begins to prove her place in your life. Instead of you chasing, she starts to notice the gap and fill it. That shift is crucial because it restores balance to the relationship. Without disappearance, there is only giving and taking, with you always on the giving side. With disappearance, there is a reset, an unspoken reminder that if respect is not present, neither are you. The truth is, disappearing is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-respect. It is the way you communicate without words, that your energy, your presence, and your attention are valuable resources, not to be wasted on someone who does not appreciate them. It is how you draw the line between love and self-abandonment, between giving and being exploited. When you disappear, you are not just protecting your value in her eyes, you are protecting it in your own. You are reminding yourself that you are the prize, that your life has meaning beyond validation, that your worth is not determined by who chooses you, but by how you choose yourself. One of the most powerful things a man can ever learn in relationships is this: when you disappear, you discover the truth. You discover who really values you and who was only entertained by you. Because the moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop pouring in effort without balance, you give her the space to reveal her real intentions. If she was only there for convenience, for attention, for the comfort of knowing you would always be available, your disappearance will expose it. She won't reach out, she won't invest, she won't care enough to fill the gap. And as painful as that realization can be, it is also liberating because you now see the truth without wasting more time and energy. But if she does value you, if there is genuine interest, your disappearance forces her to step forward. She will call, she will text, she will ask why you've pulled back, because real interest never allows silence to remain unbroken. That is why disappearing is not a game. It is a filter. It filters the temporary from the permanent, the pretenders from the real ones. Most men are terrified of pulling back because they fear what the silence might reveal. They keep chasing, overgiving, and staying available, not because they enjoy it, but because they are afraid of finding out that she might not care if they stopped. That fear keeps them locked in an exhausting cycle of effort with no return. But masculine men are not afraid of truth. They welcome it. They know that false connections waste time, and time is the most valuable resource a man possesses. Disappearing becomes their way of testing alignment. Does she want me for who I am, or does she only enjoy the benefits of my attention? Does she invest when I stop pouring, or does she vanish because the free ride ended? The answers come not through words, but through actions, and actions always tell the real story. Think about it. Anyone can say they care, anyone can say they want you, but words are cheap. What reveals sincerity is what someone does when there is no external pressure, when the benefits stop flowing, when you are no longer chasing them. That is when masks fall and truth emerges. If a woman truly sees your value, she will not let silence stretch indefinitely. She will not sit back and risk losing a man she respects. She will close the gap because interest always seeks connection. On the other hand, if she was never invested, your disappearance won't even register on her radar. And though that might sting at first, it saves you from years of wasted effort on someone who was never meant to walk beside you. Disappearing also shifts the balance of power in a relationship. When you chase, you are constantly proving yourself, constantly fighting for a place in her life, constantly giving more than you receive. That imbalance keeps you in a weak position. But when you disappear, the roles shift. She is forced to evaluate her own investment. She is confronted with the reality of what life feels like without you. She begins to wonder if she was too passive, if she took your presence for granted, if she undervalued what you brought to the table. That internal questioning is what sparks her to act if she truly cares. And if she doesn't act, then her silence is the answer you needed. Either way, you win, because the truth always protects you more than illusions do. The beauty of disappearing is that it places responsibility where it belongs. Instead of you carrying the full weight of making the connection work, it shifts some of that responsibility onto her shoulders. She now has to show her hand. She has to reveal her level of interest through action, not empty promises. And that's where clarity is found. Too many men remain stuck in situationships, in half-hearted connections, in toxic cycles, because they never dare to test interest. They never dare to step back and see who steps forward. They think by doing more, they can force someone to care, but care can never be forced. It can only be revealed. Disappearing is therefore an act of courage. It requires you to be willing to face rejection, to confront the possibility that she may not care enough to chase you. But it also requires you to trust in your value, to believe that if she does not step forward, it does not diminish who you are. It simply means she was not aligned with your path. And once you see that truth, you can walk away with clarity instead of clinging to false hope. Disappearing is the mirror you hold up to the connection, and in that mirror, you see whether her reflection matches yours. If it does, she will come closer. If it doesn't, she will fade away. Either way, you are protected, because truth is always better than wasting years in a lie. One of the biggest misconceptions men have about pulling back or disappearing is that it means abandoning someone. That's why so many men hesitate to step back, even when they are being disrespected, neglected, or taken for granted. They confuse self-respect with cruelty, distance with punishment, and alignment with rejection. But the truth is, disappearing is not abandonment. It is alignment. It is the process of putting yourself back into the right position when the relationship has tilted too far off balance. It is you reclaiming your space, your purpose, your frame, and reminding both yourself and her that your life is not built on dependency. You are not running away. You are recentering. You are not rejecting her. You are refusing to reject yourself. When you disappear, you are not sending a message of I don't care about you. You are sending a message of I care about myself enough to not lose me in the process of caring about you. That distinction is critical. Abandonment is rooted in fear, bitterness, or neglect. Alignment is rooted in clarity and self-respect. A masculine man does not disappear to hurt, manipulate, or control a woman. He disappears because he refuses to stay where he is not valued, respected, or aligned with his higher calling. His absence is not an attack. It is a declaration of boundaries. It is the statement that his life is bigger than one person's approval, and his identity is not chained to anyone's acceptance. Women may not admit it, but they can feel the difference. They know when a man disappears from bitterness versus when he disappears from alignment. A bitter man vanishes with anger, with hostility, with passive-aggressive energy. He wants her to notice his absence, to feel guilty, to come crawling back. But a man who disappears from alignment does not need any of that. He is calm, steady, focused, and intentional. He disappears not because he wants to hurt her, but because he refuses to hurt himself by staying in a situation where his value is being diminished. That energy is powerful, and ironically, it often pulls her back stronger than any words or arguments ever could. Because women are drawn to men who are not afraid to walk away when something compromises their dignity. Alignment also means reconnecting with your mission. Masculinity is built on purpose. When you disappear, you redirect your energy from chasing someone into building yourself. You return to your goals, your growth, your vision. That shift not only strengthens you, but also reminds her of why she was drawn to you in the first place. No woman respects a man who abandons his mission to orbit around her. She may enjoy the attention for a moment, but eventually she will lose respect for the man who has nothing else driving him. Disappearing is how you realign with the truth that your purpose must always come first. It is how you show that your time, your energy, your life are anchored in something deeper than romance. That alignment makes you magnetic because it communicates independence, strength, and direction. There is also a spiritual dimension to this. When you disappear, you are trusting the flow of life. You are saying, if this connection is meant to align with me, it will. If it is not, then my disappearance will clear the space for what is. Abandonment is fear-based. It comes from the urge to run away from discomfort. Alignment is faith-based. It comes from trusting that what belongs in your life will remain without you forcing it. That mindset frees you from the desperation of needing to control outcomes. You no longer beg, convince, or chase. You align, and in that alignment, you find peace whether she stays or goes. Disappearing also redefines responsibility. You stop carrying the entire weight of the relationship on your back. You allow her to step forward if she chooses to. You make space for her to reveal her own level of commitment, effort, and respect. That space is where truth lives. Without it, you can never know whether she is genuinely invested or simply coasting on your energy. By aligning yourself first, you give her the opportunity to align with you or to drift away if she cannot. Either way, the outcome protects you because alignment always leads to clarity, and clarity always saves you from unnecessary chaos.